Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another Good e-Reader video review. My name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Today we have the new 5th generation iPad, the Apple iPad Air. It's running iOS 7. It's a 9.7-inch screen, so it's consistent with every other iPad that they ever have made, excluding the iPad mini. It has a resolution of 2048 by 1536. It has a quad-core graphics processor and a 1.3 gigahertz dual-core CPU processor. 1 gig of RAM. Storage options vary depending on really what you want to get. 16, 32, 64, or 128 gig are your options. You have a front-facing 1.2 megapixel camera and a rear-facing 5 megapixel camera. Roughly about 10 hours of battery life, but with any tablet, it's all a matter of what you do.
Really quickly, I'm just going to put this beside the iPad mini because this looks like a giant iPad mini. From the front, it looks very conventional iPad. You have the piano black bezel with a webcam up top, home button on the bottom. And you can see that it's very similar to the iPad mini with the stereo speakers because the iPad Air now has 2 speakers finally. We also have all the good stuff on the corner here, which is the power button. We have the volume up and down, lock button, camera, 2 microphones, 3.5mm headphone jack, and then the lightning connector on the bottom with the stereo speakers, and very nice backing with the mirrored.
Alright, let's take a look at the software, but first I want to draw some parallels between the 3rd generation iPad and the Apple iPad Air. One of the things that is most noticeable is the smaller bezel. You can see here that the bezel on the iPad 3 fairly large on the sides and the top, bottom. Now the bezel on the bottom here is a bit smaller than the one on the Apple iPad, but not very noticeable. It's very noticeable on the sides. It's probably a little bit more than half the size smaller, and I kind of like that because it opens up a little bit more screen real estate to show content like magazines, newspapers. We're going to put these both head to head in a direct comparison, so check out our YouTube channel for that comparison video. So we're going to take this out of the shot for now. Today we're mainly focusing on the e-reading experience. Here at Good e-Reader, the priority is, getting these sort of tablets to consume a wide array of media, magazines, newspapers, comic books, and the quintessential ebook. So we're going to basically start with an ebook, show you how everything looks. Okay, and
opened up into a 2-page spread here. Page turn has the animations there. A little bit of a peek. Also like how if you grab a corner, it's like you're grabbing the corner. Kind of cool. You have ways to change the text. You can change the text size up and down, brightness, text styles, and you have themes. Full screen, scroll. Scroll is just one gigantic endless book. Pretty cool. And you have sepia, black, white, and you can also long press, and that gives you many different options. Copy, define, highlight, note, search. We'll do one highlight, and then we'll go to a note here so we can check the keyboard out. So this is the keyboard, standard Apple keyboard. You have the secondary and tertiary areas for different characters, and it's very responsive. Apple's devices always have really good response, touch response on capacitive, so everything ebook experience looks really good.
Okay, being that this tablet is very high resolution, the question is, how do things like magazines and stuff work? So we're going to fire up a magazine.
And this is good to note that not everything's going to look good in landscape mode. You will actually have to change things into portrait mode now and then.
Yeah, I find that a lot of magazines only work in portrait mode. It's like they lock it into there exclusively, whereas like comic books and newspapers, they work in both.
Well, to be fair, magazines kind of look better in portrait mode, page by page, maybe not on a 2-page spread, but page by page they kind of do, because they're on that traditional 8.5 by 11 kind of layout.
So certain magazines will allow you different functionality. This one, of course, doesn't allow you to pinch and zoom.
And there's no double tap to do a quick zoom either. It's quite nice though. This is the full magazine experience, ads and all. See that the screen is spectacular. The resolution's very high. The colors are perfect. Nice. Bright is hilarious. You also get this kind of... Oh, there we go. Perfect.
So one of the things, say with the Rolling Stone magazine, scrolling back here, you can actually listen to a tune, or you can actually buy it, which is kind of cool features. And this is, a lot of magazines have this functionality where you can like listen to it right in the magazine and then buy it through like iTunes or like the App Store if they're promoting a specific app. So it looks really good. I mean, the picture's totally crisp. It's really maximizing the resolution. Now, not all magazines are going to be available in HD. You will notice some magazines looking the exact same on a high-resolution tablet like the iPad Air and a lower-resolution tablet, say like the Apple iPad 1, the 2. I mean, Apple's still selling the 2, but they're not really selling the 3 or 4 anymore.
Right, it was kind of weird on their homepage. That's what they were listing. Now, something in the studio we should mention really quick here is that I think it's really cool how you don't have to zoom. Because it's like you're holding a page of a magazine. It's so light, it's so thin, and it's so clear. It's not always necessary to pinch and zoom. I think that's good to note that it's very clear.
It actually weighed about, like, what, 40% less than the iPad 3?
This iPad Air weighs in at around 440 grams, whereas iPad 3 is around 650. So it is significantly lighter, and it's very thin.
Okay, the next thing that we want to do is look at a comic book, something else that's, very graphic heavy, and Comixology actually gives you comic books in HD format. So we've downloaded a few already, and we'll load it up.
So that looks great. You have the 2-page spread. You can also change it into portrait mode, and this gives you what a comic book page traditionally looks like. Wow, that looks phenomenal. Let's do a guided view here.
Our good old boy Thanos.
Look at that.
A funny story about Thanos is at the end of the original Avengers movie, they did a little teaser with him looking at it. And supposedly with the new Thor movie, there actually might show another scene of Thanos. And they did an interview with a few of the directors, most noticeably Joss Whedon, who's actually, I think, directing the Avengers 2 movie. And they alluded that Thanos was the equivalent of the end boss, and they said that they're going to build him up likely for a few years before you actually see him playing a major role in the Marvel movie universe.
Interesting.
So I thought that's very interesting.
You get a thumbnail table of contents, something you don't get on a real comic book, so this is always good. Colors are very crisp. Everything is very clear. This is the full zoom. You don't need to zoom, honestly. This is a perfect size screen for comic books, magazines, and all types of media.
Yeah, and it being so light, you can easily hold this now with one hand, which is something that you couldn't do before with the older iPad models. So we've looked at a lot of content so far, eBooks, things like that. I think it's time to check out what a newspaper will look like.
This is the Vancouver Sun.
And we are using the Press Reader app, and these are basically replica editions, but you notice here that you have all the local ads and everything like that, which is good, but it tends to be unreadable. What can we do about this?
You can do a couple things. You can pinch and zoom, or you see that a bunch of things are actually highlighted in blue. So what this actually means is that you can tap on a blue highlight. This turns it into almost like an ebook mode. And you can see that you get functionality like long presses to do things like listen, page view, support or oppose, lots of options here. And you can go to, once you go to the end, it actually loads up other articles. And as Michael's showing you right now, you get some control over a couple things. Nothing crazy like line spacing or anything, but you get some size differences, some font differences, and it's actually not too bad. It's very readable. And you can always go back to page view with a simple click, and you get the traditional newspaper layout.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite newspaper apps. I think, they have almost 7,000 newspapers, 60 different countries or so. You can get a lot of stuff in different languages. So this is one of my favorites just because they make it so accessible to anybody. It's like an all-you-can-eat subscription platform where you could read the Vancouver Sun, you could read Chinese newspapers, you could read Japanese newspapers. It's fairly cool. So I'm a big fan of it, and it looks great.
It looks perfect. Looks like you're reading a newspaper.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 days only, everybody.
And you can see that the end-to-end bezel, a lot of content is showing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is cool.
Makes great use of the amount of screen they have.
Yeah. So that's one of the big things for me is that making the bezels smaller actually puts more content on the screen. And you've noticed this with not only newspapers but actually with the comic books and magazines as well. One of the final tests that we want to do is to see how the high-resolution display will work using Netflix.
Here we are on a ship moving at quite a clip through the ever-shifting ice.
Come along on the trip. That's a tip.
That's good advice. In a world that's going under, to survive you must learn to plunder. Luckily that's my field of expertise.
He's the best.
He's the roving heaving.
We really should be leaving.
We gotta get going.
Slot slaying.
I wish we could be staying.
Undisputed, uncontested, multi-suited.
Yeah, you guessed it, master of the sea.
We've looked at the iPad in a number of e-reading facets. The final thing we have here is Pulse, and this is one of my favorite apps. It's pretty well just text, it fetches deep web pages and everything like that. It's fairly popular, and it's one of my favorite e-reading apps. And as you can see here, we have Goody Reader at the top here, and instead of accessing a web page, it's just a simple e-reading experience, but lots of space on the screen, very easy to read text. I was kind of a fan of the Netflix. I thought that the resolution was really good. The stereo speakers actually were louder than the Apple iPad Mini's stereo speakers.
I think I really like the fact how this device finally has stereo speakers, and every other full-size 9.7-inch iPad has had one speaker, and yes, I thought it was very crisp, very clear, and the whole Netflix app itself ran flawlessly.
So if you want to see how the speakers go head-to-head, we're actually going to run a separate video where we're going to put the speakers head-to-head with the iPad mini and with the Apple iPad 3rd generation, so you can get a sense on how the audio performance has evolved. So we've just given you a comprehensive hands-on review of the Apple iPad Air, and we've heard our thoughts. Let's hear yours. You can drop a comment on this video if you're watching this video on another website, youtube.com/goodyreader. And for all the latest news, previews, interviews, and industry-wide coverage, you can check out our main website at goodyreader.com. And for Goody Reader, my name is Michael.
This is Peter.
Everybody take care.